All right, welcome back. Episode 96.
Yeah.
Heights and Politics.
That was a good year.
Yeah. Middle of summer, a lot going on right now.
Yeah, and we had some unfortunate news. This is the Sunday following the tragic news of the untimely death of South Carolina's very own senior Senator Lindsey Graham. Passed away from a brief and sudden illness, as his staff statement said. I read some reports of cardiac arrest. But yeah, just some bad news for our state. And we're going to take some time this episode to reflect on his life of service, not only to our state, but also to this great country.
Yes.
And so before we get into all that news, how we heard about Senator Graham's death and all those things, want to thank our sponsor,
Comer Distributing.
Yep. We don't really have a featured beer, but we are keeping our whistles wet with
Miller Lite.
With a Miller Lite. Everybody knows it's not Guffey's favorite like Bud Light, but it does.
I loved it whenever I had my mullet.
But yeah, man. So let's talk about it. How'd you hear the news? Those types of things, because we're sort of in the same.
Well, I've spent the past few days in D.C. for the Future Caucus. I was actually texting with Senator Graham on Thursday to wish him a happy birthday. Knew he was not in town, but matter of fact, whenever I flew in yesterday, ran into Charles Cannon.
Okay.
And his daughter's been working at Senator Graham's office as well. And 3:30 in the morning, I think it was.
It was, yeah.
We started getting text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was surprised that me, you, and another House colleague were actually up.
Yeah.
Between 3 and 4 a.m. and we're
all at that age for middle of the night bathroom breaks.
So yeah, we were all up and talking. Man, it was just initially shock, right?
Yes.
Shock and surprise that because while he's 71, he's still a spry 71. You know what I mean?
Right.
He got around good. He just returned from a trip to
71's young for a senator.
Yeah, right.
It appears.
And so yeah, just shock and surprise for me, and then like trying to get the details of his death, right? What happened? The statement I think that his office put out was brief and sudden illness, and sort of succumbing to those. That was a little vague.
Yeah.
So look forward to hearing some of that. And I think that sort of, and again, I think this should be looked at. I do think because of just the global environment that we're in.
We just had Iran. Call a hit list.
Yep. He also was in Kiev touring
yesterday.
A drone interceptor manufacturing plant that then subsequently, after he left, got bombed by Russian missiles. And so, there was a lot of some of these questions of was he taken out? Was he by Iran, or it's just some foreign adversary? And so again, we're not going to add to any fuel to that theory.
And this is all brand new too, by the way.
Yeah, correct.
This might come out a day later and everything changes and we got more information.
Correct. But I do think it is our responsibility to make sure to rule that out, right?
Correct.
That it was natural causes and those types of things. So,
even the president said that he spoke to Senator Graham last night.
Yeah.
And they were just talking about the SAVE Act.
Right. Yeah. Right. So there's just a lot of important issues that are being dealt with in the Senate right now that it fuels these conspiracy theories, right? Without getting sort of the investigation and the evidence to support it. So I would just say, everybody pump the brakes on retweeting a Laura Loomer tweet.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that, especially in the middle of the night with the Laura Loomer.
Yeah, and again, nothing against her. I'm just saying, folks, let's let the autopsy, let's let those sort of processes conclude, and then let's listen to what the medical folks have to say before let's jump into.
Yeah, now they did release a 911 call.
Yeah,
it sounded like someone was calling it in, coming from Baltimore, trying to get down to his D.C. residence, and the paramedics were not sure whether they should go in or not because no one was coming to the door.
Wow. And he does have a history with some blood pressure stuff, and So, if it was cardiac arrest, then, that's unfortunate, but, that does happen.
We're at the heart attack age, so 71-year-old certainly could be. And then you had the flight. I mean, anytime you're on these long flights, there's always chance
Right.
of blood clots. So
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We got some calls. We just did an interview here with the local Charlotte station, talking about Senator Graham's passing. But also, let's talk about, we've now been in the State House for 4 years. It takes its toll, right?
Yeah.
It takes us sacrificing personal time away from our families and doing some things to serve our constituency. Not just here in York County, but doing work around the state and just certain policy issues, right? Healthcare, child safety, those types of things. And like you just got, last week you were in D.C.?
yes, just got back from D.C. yesterday.
And again, that's work adjacent,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's some of the causes that you advocate for. And so I don't want to not acknowledge Senator Graham, whether you agreed with him or not. I mean, he has spent better part of his life, right? Since the 90s, early 90s, he was a state rep. And then from there, he was U.S. House rep and then a senator. So 35 years or so.
And he knew it. I mean, one of the things that Trump said in his interview was he talked about what a politician and a statesman that Lindsey was, because he might not be able to reach across the aisle at times whenever we needed something done. But Lindsey was that guy that always could, because the people within the body respected Lindsey like that.
Yeah, right. And one of the things that sort of set Senator Graham apart for me was, my one and only working sort of experience with him was when I went up there to talk about PBM reform, right? And how our U.S. congressional delegation could work with us in the state on both levels, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing on the state level? What are you guys doing on the federal level? How can we sort of collaborate those efforts? And one of the things that I recognized early was Senator Graham didn't know what I was talking about, but he wasn't afraid to say, wait a minute, PBM, what are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's important because he didn't act like he knows things. He didn't speak to things that he didn't know about. He said, hey, you know what? Tell me more about that. Tell me what you're talking about. So that's an important, I think, sort of talent to have, is to be able to recognize and admit, I don't know everything, but I'm a quick learner. And then how can I help, right? And a lot of times, folks on a state level or a federal level, if they're in an elected position, pride gets in the way a lot of times.
Right. Well, and
you
a
know
lot
what
of
I mean?
times people might not want to help you unless they know it's beneficial to them.
Right. And so I just really appreciated him devoting some time out of his day. That experience for me was, again, he's our senior senator. He's kind of a big deal. And I thought he was going to staff out that meeting with a chief of staff or a policy guy. And he was there.
No, that's our other senator.
And
Seems to be what happens.
But he didn't do that. And I was delighted that he took the time out of his day to learn about PBM reform, drug pricing, and what we could do working together. So I know you've worked with him a lot on some of the child safety stuff.
So, I mean, every time I go to D.C., I always swing by his office, Senator Ted Cruz's office, and always attempt Tim Scott as well. But, Lindsey, every single time, if he's in town, makes time to meet with me, even if it's nothing more than to shake a hand.
Right.
And last time I was there, I just had one of my challenge coins, and I wanted to give him the challenge coin, and he wanted to take a photo with me for the challenge coin, and, that was 2 weeks ago. But he is, whenever it comes to me working with him, I would say that I was one of these anti-Lindsey Graham people, especially whenever I came in. I always felt like he was, as I told him whenever I met him, I always thought you were called Flimsy Lindsey because you like to flip from this issue to the other.
Right.
But what I got to know in working with him, it was just the opposite. Mm-hmm. And that's what was shocking to me. Doesn't mean I agreed with everything that he did. I'm not big into the foreign policy stuff. Might not be as educated on it as he is.
Right.
But I wasn't big on that. But I never felt like he was doing something just so he could get votes. And I think if everyone watching this was honest with themselves, as skilled of a statesman as he was, if he was that flip-flopper, that man that's doing that, other than the Trump situation, I don't know when else that's happened, but if he was that person that, you know, the narrative always portrays him as, wouldn't he be a lot more popular? You know?
Yeah, well,
he's going to make the decision based on what he thinks is right, and damn the consequences of whether it's going to affect his popularity.
Right. And just speaking from our personal experience, though, too, you know, we hold core values, right, of which we sort of, you know, base a lot of our sort of perspective on and how we see the world. But also, when you're in Colombia and you realize, hey, man, we can't get this version of the bill passed, so where can we give just a little, right? As long as it doesn't creep into our core values.
Right.
Where can we give a little to at least achieve a better outcome?
Or how can we be pragmatic to get to our ultimate goal?
Correct. And so it's like when you're looking at legislation as, say, a loaf of bread, you know, if you don't compromise a little and get 80% of the loaf, you're going to starve. Right? So it's not a zero-sum game. And I think that's what made Senator Graham, you know, as good as he was, because he was pragmatic. He wanted a better outcome, maybe not a perfect outcome, but a better outcome. And that's what made him, I think, a political survivalist. You know, he was very astute. I don't think that he just was a populist. I don't think that at all. I think he did have guiding principles. I just think he was also a realist and knew what they could get done and signed into law.
And at the end of the day, before I got elected, compared to being in office, I realized that it is far more important to move the goal line a little bit closer to you.
Right.
Instead of chunking Hail Marys for 20 years and never getting in the end zone.
Right.
You know?
Right. And yeah, exactly. And because you know, in Colombia, we've got 123 other members in the House with us, or 122.
And you have to go through the Senate. Like, that's what people don't realize. And that's where Graham was a master.
Yeah.
He was respected across the aisle,
right,
across the board, if you served with him.
Correct. And I think he had mutual respect on both sides of that aisle.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I thought him and Trump, here in this last term, I thought him and Trump worked well together.
Trump he actually sounded distraught on the call that he did, or in the interview that he did.
Yep. So we're talking about the untimely passing of Senator Lindsey Graham. Again, shock and surprise. We heard the news early this morning, but it does bring some natural questions of now what happens next, right?
Yeah.
And so we did want to educate.
I mean, we had one of the most powerful seats in the entire country.
Yeah.
Here in South Carolina.
Yep, and he was up for re-election. He had just won his primary. So he was facing off against Annie Andrews, who is the Democratic nominee in November. And with Graham's death, we now have a lot of questions, right? And so we wanted to inform, our audience about what actually does happen next. So McMaster our Governor McMaster has 5 days to appoint someone to fill out the remaining time of Lindsey's term, which is until January the 3rd of 2027. So within those 5 days, the question becomes, do we appoint someone who we're wanting to be the Republican nominee, or do we appoint someone that is just going to fill it out and finish out this term, right,
and allow the other members to jump in? Because it's more than 90 days out from the primary, or from the general election, our laws state that we have to have a special election. So that means that filing is going to open up for anyone to run for this. This is a statewide seat. Typically, we have an upstate and a low country member.
Right.
And so filing is going to open up on the 21st and on the 28th.
Yeah. So state law says the second Tuesday after the passing of, in this case, our senator. Filing opens, and that opens for a week. So that's what you said, July 21st through 28th is going to be filing. I'm sure there's going to be announcements well ahead of that. We're already hearing, Mace tease something. I think Ralph Norman has already scheduled a press conference here in a couple of days.
Here in Timmins, here in Hearing all kinds of scenarios.
Yeah. And so they plan to run. Now, let's get back to the appointed position.
Now, in order to run, you have to pay, 10% of the salary?
Is it?
I believe it's 10%, so it's about $15,000
Wow.
to file just to run
Not
for the office.
$208?
No.
So, yeah, I mean, so within 5 days, the governor's going to appoint. Let's stick to that for a second. So, yeah, like you said, the two options we believe will be a placeholder that commits to not run, right? Just serve the remaining.
Someone like possibly Lindsey's chief of staff or Governor McMaster's former chief of staff or current lieutenant governor. Somebody that kind of hold the seat.
Or maybe even the governor himself.
Yes.
I mean, who knows, folks? We are in some new territory here. So that's one option is a placeholder. The second option is someone who would be a viable contender to win the general election, right? So like what we said, a Ralph Norman, a Russell Fry, maybe even Pam Mavette, someone who's got some name recognition already statewide and also can self-fund because filing period ends on the 28th.
And you're going to need about $5 million just to get into a Senate race.
And then you have an election 2 weeks later, and depending on how many folks actually jump in, so what does that mean? So the special election
it means
primary,
the common man can't represents what that means.
and so I'm looking at a calendar. So it looks like if filing closes on the 28th, it looks like August 11th would be the special election primary date.
And if there's a runoff, then
folks,
2 weeks after that.
In 30 days, we're going to have another special election. That's incredible. And then,
from my understanding in this special election too, because this is a new election, without having the closed primaries, this would allow anyone to vote for it.
Gotcha.
So you could have any Andrews supporters coming out
and trying to
get
weigh in.
whoever that they feel like Annie could beat.
Right. And so depending on how many folks jump in, that primary election date would be August 11th with a possible runoff date of August 25th. So let me throw out those 4 dates again. Filing for the open seat starts July 21st. It closes July 28th with a primary election date of August the 11th. And then
a runoff on the 25th.
Yep, if necessary. So I tell you, so within 30 days, we're going to have to go back to the polls again.
No, and look, if I am Governor McMaster, and there's many ways to look at this, but we know that there is one, if not two, Congress members currently that are well liked by the president, well liked by state government, but we also have a slim majority on the Republican side and Congress. Right. So we don't want to lose those members. However, in my opinion, what would be best for the party is to have the appointment be the nominee with both supporting it.
Right.
And then that way we're not slugging it out right before a general election.
Yeah, you're trying to coalesce behind a sort of front runner.
Right.
Someone who has a Trump endorsement, someone who has a Governor McMaster appointment, and we're comfortable because they are the now appointed sitting senator. They now have sort of a track record. They've already got sort of things in motion. You know what I mean? So there won't be a lot of transition if they were to win in November in the general election.
Right.
So
I mean, if you had somebody like, say, Fry, if he wins the primary at that point, then if he's the front runner, then he has to resign.
Correct.
And then that opens up, the 7th district.
Yeah.
Or you could have, say, a William Timmons doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And still have Nancy Mace jump in. That's another name. Ralph Norman's another name.
Yep.
Especially the candidates that just got out of a statewide race. Has anyone ever thought about, like, maybe if Pam was to get the appointment?
Right. I mean,
or
folks,
Allen.
The sky is the limit. I mean, Mark Sanford. Could you see Ron Reddy jumping back in? I mean, it is, like I said, there's a lot of options on the table. I would say the next 48, 72 hours, we're going to see who that appointment is. And then I think from there, things sort of start falling. You know,
Right.
the vagueness starts becoming a little more clear.
And this could be a domino effect
Yeah, for sure.
because, I mean, you think about our generation. Senate seats are not given up. Even Tim Scott, who ran on term limits, I'm only going to serve 2 terms, has now announced he's running for another term.
Yeah.
Once you're in the United States Senate, you don't get out.
Well,
That's one of those seats that people don't walk away from. It doesn't matter how many times they say that they will.
correct. It's a long-term investment for sure.
Yeah.
You don't go and run for 6 years or 2 terms. You know what I
Because
mean?
everything's based off seniority.
Yeah, right.
And the more power you get, the more good you can do for your citizens.
That is
So it's harder to walk away. And it's just like with our positions. You get in, you start learning the system and how to maneuver things.
right. Yeah.
There's value to that. And it's not that you don't think that this person couldn't do your job. You just know they're going to have to wait 2 to 6 years before they figure it out.
So are you changing your stance on term limits? Is that what you're saying?
I believe that,
Well,
my honest opinion, these 70-year-olds should not be running for office.
Oh, man.
I'm sick and tired of grandparents making decisions for their grandkids instead of parents making decisions for their kids.
I was having the conversation this morning with my wife, and she was like, well, who do you think's going to run? This, that, and the other. So I don't know. But I'm looking forward to someone of, say, our generation. Someone who is, in their 40s, maybe 40 to 50, sort of in that age range. Even if they were younger, 35 to 55, that's fine, right? But I agree with you.
The experience cannot, the experience that you get, you can't replace that.
Right.
And I understand it. But it's just like whenever your child hits 25 years of age, you could do things better than your child.
Right.
But if you continue doing them, then your child never learns.
Yeah. Well,
and then you got a 40-year-old living in your basement.
Well, and here's another thing why I look to someone who is more your or my age is because if we're going to elect a senator now, let's plan for success where they can have seniority
Right.
here in a term or two. Where let's take someone like Russell Fry, who's more of our age. If
Good at fundraising, great with the president,
already
good
in
with
leadership in the House.
Yeah. He works across the aisles.
Right. So in 12,
Strong conservative, though.
Yep. And in 12 years, he's got seniority, and he's not. Whereas someone who is, let's say, in their 70s, man, they're going to serve a term, maybe 2, but even that, they're pushing 90.
But the argument is, Lindsey, 71.
Yes, correct. And he was at the tail end of his
Right.
career, not the beginning.
Right.
Right. So we're talking about a fresh start for South Carolina.
So if you come in as a freshman,
Yeah.
United States Senator, how many terms is it going to take you to really make that impact?
Yeah.
And then we've got to look at, well, if you're coming from another position, how much impact did you have
Yep.
at that position?
Yeah, so again, a sad day here in South Carolina and across the country, obviously, but with the passing of Senator Graham, there's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen next, but folks, we just don't know.
We could do a whole episode just on scenarios.
Yeah, correct.
Like I was saying earlier, like I think it would, the way Pam did during the gubernatorial race, killed it in Horry County. It's like,
Right.
man, if you put Russell on there, well, then Pam could run for that congressional seat. Or if you want to be vindictive, if you're Henry, and I don't think that is there,
Yeah.
do you name someone like a Allen or Mike who's already on a statewide ticket and kind of throw that into a spin? Like, there's
Yeah.
so many different things that could happen.
Yeah.
But ultimately, South Carolina lost someone that always looked out and put South Carolina first.
Yeah.
And we need to ensure that whoever is coming in is going to do the same, and that we're making the decisions for what's best for South Carolinians.
100%. So, again, thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Lindsey Graham. I know he's got a sister, and also, all of his
Staff
and supporters,
Yeah.
friends and family, and just our state in general, right? We lost a good one. He replaced the longest serving senator in Strom Thurmond. He then served, 22 years in the Senate.
The one regret I have is that I didn't give him a fair chance to begin with. I just took the assumptions that I seen online, and I would beg of anyone who is not really into politics but may listen to our show.
Mm-hmm.
Before you start judging someone, get to know them.
Yeah.
I think all of us are pretty accessible. Get to know them, get to know their character, and that tells you a lot more. And then you realize at times how you're being misled, how you're being divided, or how we're being divided
Right.
as a country and a state.
And especially on a statewide election level, like a governor or an AG or a senator, or just your hometown congressman. You know, if they're going to have an event or have it at a town hall, even if it's a virtual, participate in that.
Yeah.
Get some direct sort of experience with the candidates who are vying for your vote. Don't always go with what's on Twitter.
And don't just listen to the fluff. Someone says that they're for something, say, well, why didn't you do this? Or,
Right.
like, bring the questions. Just ask the questions. Just like you were saying. That was one of the things Graham was good at.
Right.
Like, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Can you explain it to me?
Yep, for sure. So, well, that'll end this segment. We do have an additional segment where it's more of a local issue, so to speak.
Yes.
We had an economic development project that, some wrenches got thrown in a FELO agreement by our county council to bring Octapharma to Rock Hill at the former Panther site. Huge economic development project, 1,500 jobs, $1.5 billion worth of private investment. Also, the state was kicking in some incentive. So we're gonna talk about some of those things and then what's next for that project. This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties. All right, so we do have a local issue we want to talk about. This past week, our county council stepped up third reading
Yes.
on a FELO agreement that would bring Octapharma.
Now, a FELO agreement, for those that are unaware, is a fee in lieu of taxes.
Yep.
So it's used as because Act 388 kind of throws our tax system off, we give a fee in lieu of taxes because we can't really cut your taxes.
Right.
And
sort of
essentially
helps with
lowering your millage.
Right, and it helps incentivize a business that typically would pay a higher business tax in South Carolina versus our neighbor to the north in North Carolina.
Right.
It helps us incentivize that business to set down here in York County.
However, it's not the same as way all the news would like to portray it. You're not giving this business $80 million.
Correct.
You're lowering what they would pay percentage-wise in taxes
For a set number of years.
for a set number of years, and maybe over 40 years, you lowered it $80 million, and it's saying, oh, you gave them $80 million. Like, nah, not exactly.
Right. So this is, I believe, a Swiss pharmaceutical company in the plasma business.
The simple way I would explain it real quick before we get on to that would be, imagine if whenever we run a sales tax-free day,
Right.
but instead of it being sales tax-free, we said, oh, we want everyone from North Carolina, so if you show a North Carolina ID, you're only going to pay 4% sales tax because it's higher in North Carolina,
Right.
whereas everyone else is having to pay the 7%.
So we paid North Carolina millions of dollars.
Yeah, but we didn't pay North Carolina. We just cut it to get the North Carolinians or to get the business
To
here.
help the business community.
Right.
Right. So anyway, 2 weeks ago, our county council had second reading. There was a FELO agreement that basically put the city of Rock Hill, York County, and our school district all taking a 50% haircut of future tax revenues.
Property taxes.
Yep. To incentivize Octapharma to come and set down their North American headquarters along with a manufacturing facility that all in all was going to bring 1,200 jobs averaging about $100,000 and then 300 jobs that were more management executive level that averaged $140,000. So it seemed like it was going to be a win-win.
Going to be a huge impact to this community. Now, this is also on the land that was part of the failed Panthers project.
Yep.
And that one, the
So it's
schools
already-
got 0.
Yep. And it's shovel ready.
Right.
Right? The infrastructure is there. Novant just recently had announced they were going to build a $300 million facility right next door. And so now Octapharma setting down is just, it doubles the original investment that David Tepper and the Panthers were going to put into the site. And we still have a lot more land left over.
To bring in other things.
And so it just seemed like it was a win-win. And I know here in York County and Rock Hill, a lot has been talked about the bio, life sciences sort of industry in the field and trying to attract those jobs, especially because we want to provide workforce development with Winthrop
Through our
University
universities, yeah.
and York Tech. So it just seemed like this was all heading down a path to success. And in second reading, we had our county councilman Bump Roddy throw a wrench in that agreement, and he basically wanted to change sort of the haircut, so to speak, right?
Now, the haircut was originally negotiated by York County Economic Development.
Yep.
That was going off of the previous standard of everyone's going to take an equal cut off the percentage of their taxes.
Yeah. And so this amendment basically said, hey, Rock Hill, you're not going to take a 50% haircut. You're going to take a 100% haircut, right? And then that lowered York County's haircut from, say, 50% to what, 31%? I think was what it was.
No, York County's 50% still. They didn't lower York County.
Oh, yeah. I thought you had a graphic there that demonstrated what the amendment.
On the new one.
Yeah.
So
Rock Hill Schools.
It actually lowered Rock Hill Schools' tax break down to 31.9%.
Okay. So they didn't take as much as a haircut, right?
Right.
And that's what we heard in the
Which
county.
the majority of your property taxes
goes to schools.
Goes to schools.
Yep. And that's what we heard a lot during the second reading council meeting from 2 weeks ago, was that this amendment was out of care for our school district. Funny thing is, I called a bunch of folks who sit on our school board, and they never asked for this. They weren't aware of this, and now they have called a special meeting scheduled for Monday, tomorrow. I think to go on record and say they didn't ask for this, they had no part in this, and they don't want to be scapegoated by our county council. But we will see.
Now, I know whenever I was on county council and the Panther agreement was going on, I did get many phone calls from school board members, but they were giving up 100% of their tax revenue.
Right.
And so was Rock Hill. And York County was the only one not giving up all of theirs.
Right. So 2 weeks ago, we had second reading. This amendment got voted in 5-2, with the only dissenting members on county council not supporting this amendment that changed the equation for the city of Rock Hill was Watts Huckabee and Andy Litton.
Both which represent the district that I represent.
Yep. And so, and once that second reading 2 weeks ago occurred, man, folks came alive, right? I mean, you saw a bunch of stuff on social media. You saw a lot of outreach from concerned voters saying that the county council is now putting at risk this huge transformational economic development project to bring Octapharma here. And for whatever reason, maybe it was personal scheduling conflicts or whatever, but county council decided to move up their third reading. That was supposed to occur next week, and they pulled third reading this past Wednesday evening, of which you can see it online, looked like a shit show.
Now, I want to say this, because whenever I got elected to county council, I didn't understand the dynamics of the pissing contest between York County and the city of Rock Hill. Mm-hmm. And the way I would always explain it once I got in there was this: if you've never read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, you had two different style managers. So York County was saying, we'll never finance anything. You know, if we can't pay for it outright, then we're not doing it. Whereas Rock Hill, the city, would always say, if we can't afford it, how can we afford it? And they got creative with their accounting in order to make things happen.
Right.
Caused a little bit of blowback between the way that they do things. However, Rock Hill, whenever I was on council, was the fourth largest city in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And yet we seem to be the only municipality fighting with the county. Now, I live in the unincorporated area, so whenever I got on council, I'm like, yeah, you know, I represent Rock Hill, but I'm not like downtown Rock Hill.
Yeah, North Rock Hill.
Yeah.
The River District.
And so I come in, but I immediately started seeing what we're dealing with now with some of these projects.
Right.
How information is spun to get people all up in arms and to just hate the city of Rock Hill. A lot of it was coming from our local GOP at the time.
Right.
About previous TIFs and everything else. Now, we fixed the TIF situation whenever I was on council. Mm-hmm. We're trying to move forward and establish that relationship. And then this just seemed to come out of nowhere. Now, I'm sure there are things going behind the scenes, but this is more like a big FU to the city of Rock Hill, and it's doing nothing but hurting York County citizens, in my opinion.
And again, I've talked to some county council folks on both sides of this issue, and I've tried to, while I support the city of Rock Hill, I live in the city. I can walk to downtown. We can take the golf cart in. And so
the Pride Parade comes right through here, right?
Stop. The mayor and I are personal friends. I would consider Christy Cox, who's the chair of the county council, is a personal friend of mine. And so, I hear both sides of the argument, right? There was a lack of communication. If you ask council members on the county level, they wanted to say, hey, we didn't get a lot of communication. There wasn't formal communication. We were never really officially engaged in negotiating the FILO, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not choosing sides here. And so what I've told the mayor and members of county council were, folks, let's get in a room. Let's try to hammer out a workable solution. It's not going to be perfect for the city. It's probably not going to be perfect for the county. But this project is just too important. It is going to bring 1,500 well-paying jobs to York County and to the city of Rock Hill. And I just think this is a rising tides lifts all boats type of scenario, right?
Well, I mean, you did have Councilman Audette offered a solution.
Yep.
To try and offer another solution, and he became the third member, but you still have 4 against.
Yeah.
And look, I'm just speaking of my previous time on county council. We don't, honestly, neither one of us know all the details because so much of it happens in executive session.
Right.
And that's something that they can't really share. They can work that out together, but we aren't the people in the room doing so.
Right. And I think the important thing to remember here is, and some things that we may take for granted is you got to have open communication lines. There's got to be some mutual respect to build relationships, right? Whether it's on a state level with our colleagues in the House and the Senate and the governor's office to get effectuate good legislation, or just being, sort of represent your constituency and helping bring people together to work together on local issues like this, right?
Yeah. And look, whenever it comes to these economic incentives, think about it this way. You're incentivizing because you want to bring in revenue. You're taking a haircut because it's going to increase all around the community.
Correct.
Now, everything kind of around this project is not city limits. Right now it's county.
Yeah.
But the property itself is in city limits because the city won that in the lawsuit against the Panthers as part of their payment.
Right.
But now you're saying the city, which the property is going to sit on, has to give up 100%
right, while
of their
providing
tax
services.
rate, which to me, I had a conversation with one of the council members, and they said, the city's always a bully. And I was like, this is 100%. Like, this is being the bully. Like, I don't understand how that even works its way out, but hopefully we're getting there. It seems like cooler heads are prevailing. I know you're involved in the talks. I spoke to Watts about it as well. I have not spoke to Christy, but I imagine she's not too happy with me sharing.
Well,
I'm just saying, hey, this deal cannot fail.
Well, and I remain optimistic, right? I remain hopeful that, again, leaders on a county level, leaders on the city level come together and work it out. All I'm trying to do is basically play mediator, right? Because I do believe in federalism. I do believe that this is a local government issue. As a state, I am just fortunate enough to be the state delegation chairman. I am rolling off in November. But you know what I mean? I'm just trying to be the straw stirring the drink, making sure that, hey, let's work out a solution and figure it out. Because I do believe that if this project fails, I think it says a lot to the business community and the state at large that York County is closed for business. Right?
What type of incentive do we need to offer the next business to come here?
Right. And so
if every time that we do something, you got Silfab, community's up in arms over it. Then
Costco.
you've got Costco, then you've got QTS, and it's like if everything is a battle,
correct.
Why do we even want to come here?
Well, and I think you also need to honor your word. You got to honor your commitments, And so when you tell a business you are permitted and good to go, and they make a large investment based on that word, and then you want to pull the rug out, that is not good for York County. Because I'm telling you, folks, if you do not have good paying jobs in your area, your young people will not stay here. Right? And our most valuable resource, not only is just our time, but it's our young people. And if our young people aren't seeing a way to make a living, and it be affordable where they can provide for their families and make just a great quality of life here in York County, folks, we'll be a dying. You're either get busy living or get busy dying from Shawshank Redemption. That's the question that we need to answer. What kind of York County do we want to be for the next 50 years?
And growing pains are far better than dying pains.
Right.
And
so,
I mean, we never know what's going to happen. And just to be clear about this, it has nothing to do with the company Octapharma.
no.
So, or Octapharma.
Yep.
Excuse me. Has nothing to do with them. This is arguments between the county,
Yeah.
the city, possibly the schools. We'll see how all that plays out. But the school board members I spoke to said that they did not ask to get involved. Like,
Right.
and truthfully, maybe this is a discussion they need to have instead of it just being a 50% haircut for the schools to say, hey, well, out of this tax bill, 2/3 of it's going to schools. So whenever you cut us 50%, you're cutting out a lot more money than you're cutting out from the county.
Right.
Maybe we need to look at this as an equal dollar cut instead of an equal percentage cut
Right.
for future deals. However, if it's already been agreed upon, how do you go back and start changing it?
Yep, and again, just broad perspective. If we don't get this deal done, I mentioned what kind of signals, what kind of message are we sending, but also, this is, for folks who don't know, this is the Panther site, which is sort of middle of Rock Hill, right? I think this is an anchor.
It's right at the border of mine and your district.
Right, and I think this is an anchor investment project that will then spur sort of that I-77 corridor that we've been talking about.
Headed south.
All the way down to the county line with Chester. So, again, if we bumble this and mess it up and we do not complete, I think, this major economic development project, I don't think it bodes well for York County.
I agree with you there.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.
Yes, like, subscribe. Go to pintsandpolitics.show. As we said, we're going to be in the off season.
Yep.
So we're coming up. Maybe in a couple weeks, we try to do a recording on an iPhone from Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're both on task force up there.
Yeah.
Working on national issues for our states.
Yep. And folks, this is not just a press conference for Representative Guffey, okay? This is
I do have a couple of press conferences scheduled, though, by the way.
This is NCSL. This is a national organization that tries to bring
state legislators.
Yeah, and it's a bipartisan conference that many of us.
Every task force has one Republican, one Democrat that leads it, and then the members are divided up.
And so we're heading up on, I think, a Saturday because we have committee work to do.
We have work for 3 days beforehand.
Yeah, I'm on the Health Innovation Task Force, which focuses on healthcare issues, not just in South Carolina, but nationwide. A lot of that has to do with AI and how tech is pushing in and maybe replacing some human decision making, and how do we as legislators make sure that in those critical control points that physicians are making the best decisions for the patient.
And I'm on the Tech and Communications Task Force, which that's the reason so much is
like
overlapping.
We'll be working together
Yes.
a lot next term if we get reelected.
Yes.
So, but again, thanks for listening. Thanks to Comer Distributing for supporting the show.
I was going to say something, but I think I'm going to hold off on that because I need to get permission before I say it.
Okay. But we are going to be following up an episode here in roughly about 2 weeks. A lot of things going on to fill the vacant seat left by Senator Lindsey Graham. So we will probably devote part of that episode to sort of as those appointments and as that special election sort of shapes up, we'll inform our two listeners of what to expect.
Yes. Thank you.
Cold beer flowing while the world's on fire. Debate getting deep.